Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. So Liverpool beat Tranmere by a mere 3-2 in their second pre-season friendly of the campaign today in a game that was very much, a mixed bag. There were some big positives and there were quite a few big negatives in that game. And of course, the one that everyone is talking about afterwards, the one that will probably be making a few headlines tomorrow and stuff like that, was the error from Loris Karius in the first half. The lad is just not helping himself, and I said after Kiev and after all the furore about how he should never play a game for us again and people saying that Jurgen Klopp is wrong to stick by the lad, I said it doesn't come down to the mistakes you make at the end of the day, it comes down to how you respond to them. And based off his performance today, Loris Karius doesn't look like he really has the mental strength to deal with the situation that he's in, and it's entirely possible that he could be a perfectly good goalkeeper in the future of his career, but I just think at the moment it feels like the situation at Liverpool is a little bit too toxic for the lad, and at the age of 25 it just doesn't seem like he's able to cope. That show today, he makes his first real intervention of the game, he makes a decent catch from across, there's a slightly ironic, slightly I think appreciative cheer as he grabs the ball, and then the first thing he does is he kicks it straight towards a Tranmere player, and from there on in he never quite looked composed. He obviously makes a terrible error for Tranmere's first goal where the ball comes straight at him, it's coming at him about there, he tries to sort of just take it into him like that and he just bundles it in front of him and Tranmere get a goal through it. And it's just, there's no pressure on you in a pre-season friendly, and if you're still making errors then I worry about what could happen. And I've been a keen supporter of Karius on this channel in the past. I want the lad to do well. I think it would be a fantastic redemption story for him if he comes back and ends up being a really good goalie for Liverpool. But at the moment, it just looks like maybe the situation's not right for him. And whether he does need to take a little bit of time on the sidelines while someone else takes on the role of the first choice goalie, or whether he just needs to find a new club altogether. At the moment, I think being Liverpool's first choice goalie going into those first competitive games of the season doesn't look like it will be the best idea with Loris Karius, and it is really disappointing. Like I said, I'd love the lad to do well, but it just doesn't look like it's meant to be at the moment. And it is very interesting, of course. We know that Jurgen Klopp has the patience of a saint. He loves to give players second and third chances. He wants to see them develop. He wants to see them learn from their mistakes and become better players, and do so under his stewardship at Liverpool. But I just wonder whether, especially in a position so crucial as the goalkeeper, where mistakes aren't really something that you can just be like, oh, we can learn from that. They will have a huge impact on the game and the results that Liverpool get. I wonder whether this may be the final straw for Jurgen Klopp. And it is, of course, interesting given that Rome have been talking a little bit today about the availability of Alisson. They've said that they haven't received any bids yet, but they will consider them. They haven't said anything like, the lad's not for sale, we won't entertain bids or anything like that. So that is very interesting. And obviously with Alisson out of the World Cup now, it remains to be seen whether that could start to snowball and we could start to see a goalkeeping transfer saga unfold once again at Liverpool. One to keep an eye on. But yeah, just really disappointed for Loris Karius, really, and disappointed in him as well, because we all want and expect so much better from Liverpool's goalkeeper. But enough of the negativity, because the first half, like I said, the game was a mixed bag. Most of the positive stuff came in the first half. Liverpool scored 3 goals without replying that half. We had Danny Ward in goal for that, and to be fair to the lad, he does make a really good save. There is one, I think, header or bouncing shot that comes at him. It's against his momentum. He's already moving to one side, and he gets himself down really well, extends himself really well, and palms the ball away. It was incredibly impressive, did really well, and given what's happened with Loris Karius, maybe we'll see him get more and more chances and more incentives to get him in goal during this pre-season. And also, I thought his kicking was a little bit better. It's something that I criticised after the game against Chester. I thought his distribution wasn't great, and I thought he improved that in this game. In terms of the defenders in the game, I thought Camacho got forward really well. He obviously gets his goal, which is taken very nicely. He linked up with Shea Ojo, who I will come on to later, really well on that right-hand side as well. And he just looked like quite a technically gifted footballer. Like I said, it's a really nice strike, and also he got in some really good crosses as well. So, with Klein, maybe, I think a few people are still a little bit iffy on Klein, and with Gomez moving to a centre-back role, it looks like that's going to be the long-term future for him. Maybe Camacho could force his way in as a backup to Trent Alexander-Arnold for next season. Like I said, he did perform well in that game. I thought Phillips and Klavan dealt with the physical strikers really well. Klavan's distribution was pretty on point, considering he's never really been considered a ball-playing centre-half. And like I said, Phillips had a lot to deal with those big, burly centre-forwards that Tranmere were putting on the pitch and putting up against him. Thought he dealt with that really well, and he gets a couple of chances from the corners. Would have been nice to see him score a goal, but I thought he did reasonably well. And, you know, it doesn't look like he'll have a huge future at Liverpool. There are a lot of players ahead of him in the pecking order at centre-back, but he was asking the manager questions, I think, with his performance today, and it'll be interesting to see how he fares should he go on that US pre-season tour as well. And then finally, Andrew Robertson, I just thought passed and linked up really, really well. He was part of an incredibly impressive passing triangle on that left-hand side with Adam Lallana and Ryan Kent. I thought all three of them looked really sharp. They were zipping the ball around. I thought that was fantastic. Robertson's crosses into the box, once again, absolutely fantastic. He should get at least one assist from that game. Solanke should be putting away at least one of the balls that Andrew Robertson whipped into the box. So, you know, again, it very much looks like he has picked up where he left off at the end of the last season. Doesn't look like there's been any drop-off in fitness and anything like that. And it was also nice to see him, you know, work the ball on the ground as well as sort of pumping long balls into the box as well. He's never really been known for being someone who's a tiki-taka left back, so I thought what we saw from him today was very promising. And then the midfielders, obviously it was our first chance to see Fabinho and Keita alongside each other, and I thought they worked really, really well. I thought Fabinho looked very, very assured. I mentioned in the post-match video for the game against Chester that he looked like he was just a few seconds behind the game at times. He makes a few tackles that, you know, maybe he shouldn't make, or he should go in a little bit sooner, or just read the game a tiny bit better. But I thought he looked a lot better in that game. He was using his strength in all the right ways to muscle people off the ball, to get in the way, to win the ball back and stuff like that. And I thought the way he got forward was very, very good as well. I think him and Keita, you know, they had a very good understanding of who was going to go forward well. It was nice to see that they could operate in multiple roles, because Jurgen Klopp is not someone who likes to pigeonhole players into certain positions. He's not just going to say to Fabinho, stay behind the halfway line at all times, join the centre-backs and pass from deep or anything like that. He will want all of his players to join in with the attack occasionally, and he'll want players like Keita to be dropping back defensively as well. So it's good to see the players were versatile and they were functioning well in all sorts of roles. I thought Keita, once again, he thrives in those tight spaces. He looks really good when there's a lot of players around him, and that obviously means that it creates more spaces for his teammates as well. Thought his passing was good as well. The way that he moved the ball around, it was very quick, very direct. He always had an idea of what he wanted to do, so that was impressive as well. All in all, I thought as a midfield double pivot, the two of them looked excellent, and I think they look absolutely nailed on to start that first Premier League game of the season. And then the other midfielder, Adam Lallana, and it's worth mentioning that in my starting 11 prediction show for the season as a whole, I said that this was the midfield that I thought was probably going to start on that opening day against West Ham. They functioned very well, and I thought Adam Lallana looked absolutely fantastic. You know, the lad looks so sharp. The speed at which he plays, like I said, he was part of that triangle with Robertson and Kent on that left-hand side. They all linked up really well. His movement was fantastic. He was like Keita in that he always had an idea of what he wanted to do with the ball. And, of course, he gets a really, really nice goal as well. The kind of goal that we want from Adam Lallana, where he's arriving late into the box, again, thriving in those tight spaces where there's pressure on, it's a scuffle, the ball is bouncing around, there's not necessarily much order to the play, and it's good to see that he's still able of getting a decent shot away and getting a goal for Liverpool there. So I thought Adam Lallana looked really promising, and while I had some reservations before this game about the idea of him starting in those first few games of the season, looking at that, if he keeps that up and carries on doing that through pre-season, then I think Adam Lallana could have a really, really good season for Liverpool off the back of what was a disappointing year with injuries. And then the forwards for that first half, finally, thought Ojo was very, very good. He chased down a lot of lost causes. He deserves his goal. He deserves his assist. He gets both of them through that kind of way of, you know, battling with the fullbacks, never giving the ball up, muscling them off, and then getting towards the box and stuff like that. Thought he did all of that really, really well. And like I said, he plays a really good pass for Camacho. Those two linked up very well. They read each other's runs fantastically. And then he gets a really nice goal as well with a really nice finish. Again, one where there's a lot of defenders around. It's quite difficult to even find a way to actually get the ball through to the goal, let alone actually execute the shot. And I thought he did that really, really well. And he's another one who's asking questions of the manager, not just for the pre-season tour of the US, but for those competitive matches at the start of the season as well. I thought Solanke, really, the lad should be doing better. The amount of chances that I got, I mentioned the one that Robertson absolutely puts on a plate for him. He has a few headers as well, a few opportunities. That scuffle that Adam Lallana eventually scores from, I think there's probably a moment where he should really be turning and shooting in that as well. So I was disappointing in Dom Solanke. I thought he wasn't as good as he was against Chester, and I think, he doesn't really benefit from being the target man. I think he needs to drop deep just a little bit more. I don't want him necessarily playing midfield because we do want him in the box, because we want him getting goals. We want him as our number 9, as our forward threat. But I just think he plays a little bit too much like he's been pigeonholed, and he doesn't feel like he can move around. He can look for the ball a little bit more. And I think if he just plays a little bit more freely, maybe almost operates as a number 10 at times, then we'll start to see the best of Dom Solanke again. But I thought he did disappoint today, and he does need to work on his finishing, because, you know, at the end of the day, as a striker, if you're not putting the ball in the back of the net, you're no good to the team, unless you're someone like Roberto Firmino, but he's a little bit of a freak in terms of his footballing style at the end of the day. And then finally, Ryan Kent, I thought, did play very well. Like I said, he was with Robertson and Lallana on that left-hand side. He passed really smartly. I thought it's interesting to see how he really seems to thrive off of the best players in the team, and that's not to say that, like, you know, he's being carried, that he just hangs around them so they make him look good. I think the faster the game moves and the more intent that's shown by those players, the better Ryan Kent looks. I thought he didn't look like he was slowing the game down. It didn't look like, you know, Lallana and Robertson were babysitting him on that left-hand side. He looked really calm and composed, and he looked at home with those players. So that's really important as well, that these players don't look like they'd be phased if they got an opportunity in the first team. And that's obviously very important for Ryan Kent, because I think this is probably his last chance to really break into the Liverpool side. So I was impressed by him today. Hopefully he can do some more between now and the end of pre-season. And then we get on to the second half, where things did indeed get a little bit messy. Obviously Liverpool don't get another goal. They do concede 2, which makes the result look a lot less dominant than it really should have been, given that it was Liverpool against Tranmere. We've already spoken about Loris Karius. There'll be no more on him because, you know, I don't want to bring the tone down anymore. But I thought in general the performance just wasn't that great. There wasn't the fluidity of the first half. There wasn't the sharp sort of link-up play. There wasn't as much intent and ideas going forward. And that was disappointing, because a lot of the players that played were ones that did do very well against Chester, especially the ones that played in the second half against Chester, where Liverpool got most of their goals. I thought in terms of the defenders, Chiravella and Gomez did okay. I think they were getting caught out a little bit too much on the break, and obviously Chiravella makes a pretty poor error for the second goal, where he just plays an absolute hospital pass to James Milner, gives him absolutely no hope of controlling the ball. So he let us down a bit there. Obviously he's not really a proper centre-back. He is a defensive midfielder by trade, and I've said before that I don't really see a future for him at the club. It was a little bit disappointing to see Gomez get caught out so many times on the break. I thought it was the same with the fullbacks as well. You know, Moreno and Klein didn't really get forward that much in terms of actually affecting the play. But I think that was a lot to do with the general team as well. No one really contributed very well in attack in that second half. But I thought Klein and Moreno just need to show a little bit more positional intelligence. It's something that I said against Chester, where it's fine to see them going forward in that game because there was nothing being asked of them defensively. But later on in pre-season, we will get to see how these players are performing in a defensive fullback role. And based off of the evidence from today, it's not that great. And hopefully, you know, this has been a wake-up call and they will improve. They'll be more focused for those next few pre-season games. I thought in the midfield, James Milner doesn't look quite as exciting in that withdrawn number 6 role. I think as much as he is a utility man, he can play pretty much anywhere on the pitch. We know that box-to-box role ahead of the defensive midfielder, the holding midfielder, is where he plays best. It's where he played really well against Chester and where he really performed well for Liverpool at the back end of last season, especially in those Champions League games. I'm a bit disappointed that he hasn't really delivered in that number 6 role, but like I said, it's not really his best role, and hopefully we'll get to see him a bit more of him in that box-to-box role. I thought Ben Woodburn, he looked more assured in a slightly more advanced position. I said in the game against Chester that he didn't look very comfortable dropping deep. He was giving the ball away a few times. His passing was a little bit wayward. I thought he looked better in this game. His passing was better. He was getting forward more, which is probably the reason that he looked better. I don't really see him as a midfielder long term. I know Jurgen Klopp likes the idea of him almost as a number 8, as a Stevie Gerrard type player, but I think at the end of the day, Woodburn is more of a forward. I think really if you're going to play him withdrawn, you want to play him in that furthest up spot in that midfield 3, in the kind of Coutinho role. Any further back, and I think you're wasting Ben Woodburn really. So disappointing today, but hopefully we see some better performances in him between now and the end of pre-season. I thought Curtis Jones, not as good as he was against Chester, but still showed some good technique, still showed a lot of promise. I think he is one that we'll be looking forward to seeing a lot more from in this pre-season pre-season. He does look good so far, and obviously at a very young age, there's a lot of development that can be made there. In terms of the forwards, I thought Wilson was the best of the bunch, to be perfectly honest, which is a big compliment to the lad, given that he had Sturridge and Origi alongside him. I thought he controlled and moved the ball really well. It's disappointing that he doesn't get a goal after his brace against Chester, but he was always in the right places. He passes quickly. He picks out his teammates really well. He should get an assist when he passes to Nathaniel Klein early on in that second half. He sets it up really well, the way he receives the ball on the turn at the edge of the box. He holds it up for a moment, waits for that run from Klein, and then zips it through to him. And I just think the way he plays, like I said, it's not just about the goal scoring, it's about how he brings his teammates into play as well, and it's the speed that he moves the ball, and I thought he was really, really impressive. So Harry Wilson, you know, looks like a lad who could be a force in those League Cup games, you know, someone that we can actually turn to and say, you know what, I rely on you to come on in this game and deliver, so that is very promising. The other two forwards, Sturridge and Origi, less so. They didn't really have very good games today. I thought Sturridge, certainly not as good as the game against Chester. He still showed those moments of quality, those moments of superior technique, but they were a little more staggered. They weren't as all-encompassing. We didn't see them all the way through the 45 minutes. They were very much flashes of brilliance rather than a full display of it, which is disappointing. I thought we also saw the side of him that Liverpool fans aren't a huge fan of as well, where he can be maybe a little bit greedy. Obviously, we see him get that fantastic goal against Chester from outside the box. He was trying it a few more times today and it wasn't coming off, and there were a few moments. Obviously, it's centre forward's instinct. He wants to be the man who gets the goals, but there are a few times where you're saying, come on, there's lads who want the ball. There's youngsters as well who need to impress, who need an opportunity to show the manager what they're capable of, and you're just blamming it against centre-backs from 25 yards out. So that was a little bit disappointing. Maybe, you know, we can put our Sturridge excitement on hold for a little bit. And then Origi, to be honest, bit useless. I forgot that he was on the pitch at times. Again, it's that thing about Divock Origi that if he's not scoring, there's no point having him on the pitch because he doesn't really offer anything else. And he has, I think, maybe one or two opportunities where he's bearing down on goal. He fluffs them both, and I think, if I'm honest, the lad's living on borrowed time at Liverpool at the moment. I know people do like Divock Origi. There are people who think that some of us are too harsh on Divock Origi, especially given the support that we've shown to Solanke in the past. But I just think Origi doesn't have enough to his game to justify being selected for Liverpool, especially being selected in the kind of role that's normally fulfilled by a player like Roberto Firmino. So yeah, a very mixed bag, that pre-season friendly. I expect the manager will not be best pleased with some of the players and some of the performances that were in that game. Obviously, we let the lead go a little bit. 3-2 is not an ideal result in a game against Tranmere, and certainly the way that we let those two goals in the end will be a pause for thought for Jurgen Klopp. So, like I said, a mixed bag, some promising signs in there. Hopefully this is just a little bit of a blip, and like I said, Jurgen Klopp can get in these players' ears on the training ground and just make sure that, I think, focus is the key here. You know, everything dropped off a little bit. The game wasn't managed very well. There's a lot to be said about the rotation and stuff like that, and, you know, certain players playing out of position. But I just hope that we don't see something like this again between now and pre-season. But still, a few promising signs in there. So that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very, very much for watching. I'll be back soon, hopefully, with some sort of transfer news. Until then, don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days as well. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.